Silent attentiveness is one of the most revealing traits of an introvert avoidant when they are secretly drawn to someone. Unlike people who openly declare their interest through constant compliments, dramatic gestures, or frequent verbal affirmations, the introvert avoidant prefers to observe quietly. Their focus rests on listening and absorbing rather than performing or competing for attention. At first glance, this can feel confusing. You might think their silence means disinterest, but in reality, it often signals a heightened awareness of your words, your tone, and even the smallest details of what you share. They are careful listeners, and this quiet observation becomes their way of showing a deeper form of care. It is subtle, yes, but in its subtlety lies its intensity. When you mention something small, perhaps the name of a sibling, a favorite food, or an offhand comment about a stressful day, they store it away with surprising accuracy. Weeks later, you may find them asking how that sibling is doing, or casually suggesting the very restaurant you once said you liked. This isn't coincidence. It is evidence of silent attentiveness, the quiet cataloging of details that matter to you because you matter to them. Unlike those who flatter you with rehearsed lines, their interest emerges in tailored interactions. They show they are paying attention not with loud declarations but with precise awareness. That awareness is their signature. Silent attentiveness also reveals itself in the way they create space for your voice. An avoidant who is secretly interested often resists dominating the conversation. Instead, they let you take the lead, offering gentle prompts or simple acknowledgements that encourage you to share more. They may not immediately respond with stories of their own, but they are mentally recording your words. Their silence here is not emptiness, it is the fertile ground where your expressions are planted and remembered. This makes the connection feel strangely safe because you sense that your words are not vanishing into the air, but landing on someone who values them deeply. There is also an emotional dimension to this attentiveness. When avoidants listen silently, they are often protecting themselves at the same time. They want to know you, but they are cautious about how much of themselves to reveal. Their listening becomes a bridge, a way of connecting without exposing too much vulnerability. They may not reciprocate with their own confessions right away, but their memory of yours shows investment. It is their way of inching closer while keeping their guard intact. And though this can feel unbalanced in the moment, it is often a step in their gradual process of opening up. What makes silent attentiveness so powerful is the impact it has on how you feel. Imagine being with someone who recalls the exact phrasing of a story you told weeks ago, or who notices subtle changes in your mood that others overlook. These small recognitions create a sense of being seen, truly seen in a world that often glosses over details. For the avoidant, this is their way of offering intimacy without risking direct exposure. For you, it becomes a gentle affirmation that you matter in their inner world. Even if they struggle to express it outwardly, ultimately, silent attentiveness is both a shield and a gift. It allows the introvert avoidant to love quietly without risking too much of their vulnerability too soon. But it also allows you to feel valued in a way that words alone rarely achieve. When you recognize this trait, you can begin to see their silence not as disinterest, but as a form of deep listening, an unspoken language of care. In those moments when you feel unsure, remember, the quiet one who remembers the smallest parts of you may, in truth, be the one most captivated by you. Silent attentiveness is one of the most powerful yet easily overlooked signs that an introvert avoidant is secretly invested in you. Unlike extroverts who may shower someone with compliments or obvious displays of affection, avoidants communicate their feelings in quieter ways. One of the clearest indicators lies in how they listen. At first glance, their behavior may seem detached, as if they are just another face in the crowd. But pay close attention to the details. When an avoidant is drawn to you, they don't just hear your words, they internalize them, remember them, and revisit them later in subtle but meaningful ways. Imagine you mention in passing that you have an early meeting on Monday, and later, without you ever reminding them, they ask how it went. Or perhaps you casually share that you love a certain type of tea, and the next time you meet, they've brought it with them, claiming it was just lying around. These aren't random gestures. They're the result of listening deeply, storing small fragments of your world, and weaving them into thoughtful actions that say, I notice you. Even if the words themselves are never spoken, Their silence is not disinterest. It is focus. It is a way of creating intimacy without the risk of direct exposure. This kind of attentiveness often reveals itself in group settings. While others dominate the conversation with jokes and stories, the introvert avoidant sits back, watching and listening. You may even catch them looking at you more than at anyone else, not to intimidate, but to absorb your mannerisms, your tone, and the way you react to others. Their quiet presence becomes a mirror reflecting how much they value your authenticity. They may not jump into the dialogue with bold declarations, but later, in a private moment, they'll reference something you said hours or even days ago. It can feel disarming when someone remembers things you didn't even realize you'd shared, but that's the nature of silent attentiveness. It works in the background, building a picture of who you are without demanding the spotlight. Part of why this matters is because introvert avoidants often wrestle with vulnerability. Speaking directly about emotions feels risky to them, as if opening up could expose a part of themselves they've long protected. Instead, they use listening as both a defense and a gift. It allows them to stay guarded while still expressing connection. For them, attentiveness is safer than confession. Yet the effect is the same. You feel seen, valued, and understood in ways that words alone often fail to capture. This behavior also carries a subtle test. If you notice their quiet interest and respond with warmth rather than pressure, you create a bridge for them to open up further. But if their attentiveness is dismissed or overlooked, they may retreat into their shell, convincing themselves that staying quiet is safer than risking rejection. Understanding this dynamic allows you to appreciate the significance of their silence rather than misinterpret it as distance. Silent attentiveness, then, is not just about memory or observation. It is about intimacy in disguise. Every remembered detail, every quiet gesture, every thoughtful response is a window into feelings too delicate to be declared outright. And in many ways, this form of connection can feel more genuine than grand displays of affection because it comes not from a need to impress, but from a desire to truly know you. It is their way of saying, "You matter to me," without ever having to put the words into the air. Gentle curiosity is one of the most revealing signs that an introvert avoidant is secretly obsessed with you, yet it is also one of the easiest to overlook. Unlike the extroverted personalities who openly express their admiration or flood you with compliments, the introvert avoidant will rarely, if ever, make bold declarations of interest. Instead, their intrigue shows up quietly, almost like ripples beneath the surface of calm water. You'll notice it when they ask you small but meaningful questions, the kind that prove they are not just listening to you, but carefully storing away the details of who you are. It could be as simple as them remembering how you like your coffee or recalling a book you once mentioned in passing. To the untrained eye, this may look like ordinary politeness, but in reality, it reveals a deeper investment of their mental and emotional energy. Their questions will rarely feel random. They may ask about your day, not in a generic way, but in a way that connects to something you shared before. If you mentioned an upcoming meeting, they will ask how it went. If you once spoke about a sibling or a pet, they will circle back to inquire about them. This isn't idle conversation. For an avoidant, it's a way of building a quiet bridge towards you without exposing themselves too much. Their curiosity acts as a safe channel where they can express interest while maintaining the emotional distance they instinctively cling to. It's important to understand that avoidants fear vulnerability. So for them to demonstrate this type of attention means they are battling with themselves between wanting closeness and fearing it. Gentle curiosity also reveals itself in how they ask questions, not just to gather facts, but to connect dots about your personality. They may not say it outright, but they are trying to decode your values, your routines, your passions, and even your struggles. You might notice that they light up subtly when you speak about something you care about, and then later they bring it up again as though to remind you that they were not only present, but fully invested in your words. This is not the behavior of someone detached. It's the behavior of someone who is quietly weaving you into the fabric of their thoughts. For instance, imagine mentioning to this person that you've been feeling stressed about a project. They might not flood you with advice or dramatic offers of help, but days later they may ask, "How did that project turn out?" That simple question, delivered in a low, key tone, is loaded with meaning. It says, I remembered. I cared enough to think about it when you weren't in front of me. I wanted to know because your world matters to me. That is the essence of gentle curiosity. It's interest without pressure, intimacy without exposure, love whispered instead of shouted. What makes gentle curiosity powerful is that it aligns with the introvert avoidant's natural style. They don't thrive on spotlight or overt expressions of affection. They thrive on subtleties, on the quiet exchanges that feel safe yet meaningful. By asking small but intentional questions, they both reveal their emotional attachment and protect themselves from the risk of outright rejection. In their world, curiosity is safer than confession. It allows them to edge closer to you without stepping over their own emotional boundaries. This is why recognizing gentle curiosity is essential if you are trying to understand whether an introvert avoidant is secretly drawn to you. If you mistake it for casual friendliness, you might underestimate the depth of their feelings. But when you see it for what it is, you realize that their quiet questions are the emotional equivalent of shouting from the rooftops. They may never phrase it in those terms, but their actions speak in a language that is no less sincere. Gentle curiosity is their way of saying, "You occupy my thoughts more than I would like to admit, and I can't help but want to know more about you." When it comes to understanding someone who is introverted and avoidant, one of the most powerful yet often overlooked signals of their feelings is the way they quietly protect the person they care about. Unlike more expressive personalities who make their affection obvious through grand declarations or dramatic displays, the avoidant individual tends to reveal themselves in subtle gestures of concern and care. Protective actions may not come with flowery words or romantic promises, but they speak volumes about the emotional investment they may be too afraid to express directly. If you watch closely, you will see that an avoidant who is secretly obsessed with you will find ways to make your life safer, easier, or more comfortable, all while pretending it's no big deal. It might be something as small as noticing that you forgot your umbrella and handing theirs to you, even if it means they walk in the rain. It could be them standing on the side of the sidewalk closer to the street without drawing attention to it, or stepping in when someone else interrupts you in conversation and redirecting the space back to you. These actions are rarely accompanied by an explanation because avoidants tend to fear being exposed or misunderstood if they say too much. Instead, their protection shows up in behavior. Quiet interventions that make you feel considered, even if they act as if they just happen to be there. One of the clearest ways this protection shows up is in how they respond when you're uncomfortable. An avoidant might not jump into a social situation to charm everyone, but you'll notice they're unusually alert when they sense you're uneasy. They'll scan the environment, remove small stressors, or create excuses to pull you away from overwhelming situations. They may not tell you they care in direct words, but they will protect your peace as if it's something they personally value. In their world where vulnerability feels dangerous, protecting you is their way of showing they're emotionally invested without opening themselves up to rejection or judgment. There is also a deeper layer to these protective actions that often goes unnoticed. Avoidants are usually protective even when you are not watching. They might defend your name when you're not in the room, or make decisions with your well-being in mind before you even know the choice was made. It's in the little things like researching the safest route for a trip you're taking together, or checking in quietly to see if you got home safely without making a big deal out of it. Their obsession isn't always displayed through the kind of affection that's easy to recognize. Instead, it's encoded in thoughtful caution and care. They carry the weight of watching out for you in ways they don't broadcast. Sometimes this protection can be mistaken for distance, because avoidants rarely explain why they do what they do. You might not realize that the reason they step back in public is to avoid putting you in an awkward position, or that the reason they quietly fix a problem before you even notice it existed is because they want to take care of you without making you feel obligated to them. Their protective nature is often disguised as practicality or coincidence, but beneath the surface lies a depth of attachment that they may not even admit to themselves. In relationships with avoidant personalities, these protective actions matter more than they appear. They are the breadcrumbs of their hidden emotions and often the strongest clue that they are secretly obsessed with you. They may not say the words you long to hear, but they'll make sure your comfort, safety, and dignity are preserved in ways that can't be ignored. To them, protecting you is not just about avoiding harm, it is about proving, in the quietest and most unspoken way, that you matter deeply. Nonverbal intensity is often one of the most telling yet overlooked signs when an introvert avoidant is secretly obsessed with you. Because avoidants struggle with openly expressing their emotions, their words can be guarded, vague, or delayed. They fear that speaking too soon or too directly will leave them vulnerable to rejection, so instead their emotions leak through in more subtle, physical ways. This is where body language becomes a language of its own, one they cannot always control. If you pay close attention, you will see that their eyes, posture, and presence tell a far deeper story than their lips ever will. One of the clearest examples lies in eye contact. An avoidant who is secretly drawn to you will often hold your gaze longer than is typical, even if only for a second or two. The eyes have a way of revealing longing, admiration, and focus, and no matter how hard someone tries to play it cool, that look tends to slip through. Sometimes it will feel as if they are studying you, as though memorizing the details of your face or the expressions you make when you laugh. Other times, you may catch them quickly looking away the moment your eyes meet. That flustered withdrawal doesn't mean disinterest. On the contrary, it usually means they were caught in a vulnerable moment and needed to retreat before you noticed too much. Beyond the eyes, their body positioning becomes another clue. An avoidant who is secretly obsessed will angle themselves towards you in a group, even when they are not directly speaking to you. Their torso may face your direction, their feet might point subtly towards you, and when you shift, you may notice that they subtly shift too. It is not necessarily a conscious choice. It is an unconscious magnetism, the body aligning itself toward the person who holds their focus. This positioning often shows up in moments of silence when they think no one is paying attention. You might even feel their presence behind you, as if they gravitate close enough to sense your energy but still hesitate to step fully into your space. Another powerful layer of nonverbal intensity is in their microexpressions. Introvert avoidants often suppress their larger emotional reactions, but their faces betray them in fleeting moments. A flash of pride when you achieve something, a barely contained smile when you walk into the room, or a quick furrow of worry when you seem upset. These small bursts reveal far more than their carefully constructed words. They might try to downplay their feelings with neutral conversation, but the split-second emotions that surface can be the clearest sign of how much they actually care. Physical stillness is another clue. While some people fidget or act restless around their crush, avoidants often go the other way. They become unusually still in your presence, as though they are hyper-aware of their movements and afraid of giving themselves away. The intensity comes not from what they do, but from what they refrain from doing. Their restraint, their hesitation before reaching out, and their careful control of gestures all signal that they are deeply invested in how you perceive them. Even a simple brush of the hand or leaning slightly closer than usual carries layers of meaning for someone who normally keeps a protective distance. The final piece of nonverbal intensity comes in their lingering. An avoidant who is secretly obsessed might hover near you after a conversation has technically ended, as though they are reluctant to let the moment go. They may walk slower when leaving your side, hesitate before saying goodbye, or remain quietly nearby when there is no practical reason to. These moments may feel subtle or even awkward, but they are heavy with unspoken emotion. For them, staying close is their way of experiencing intimacy without risking exposure through words. Nonverbal intensity matters because it reveals the depth of feelings that an avoidant is too fearful to articulate. It gives you the chance to see past the guarded words and into the raw emotions beneath. Their silence, their eyes, their hesitation, all of these are love letters written without ink. The challenge is whether you can recognize them and decide if that hidden passion is something you want to nurture or if the silence will ultimately weigh heavier than the connection itself. Push-pull behavior is one of the most confusing patterns you'll ever experience with someone who is introverted and avoidant. yet deeply interested in you. It can feel like emotional whiplash. One moment, they're present, warm, and even vulnerable, giving you glimpses of real closeness. The next moment, they retreat, go silent, or create distance so abruptly it leaves you questioning whether any of it was genuine. For many people, this back and forth is interpreted as disinterest, but in reality, it often reflects the internal battle happening within the avoidant's heart. They are pulled toward connection by genuine attraction and emotional investment, but at the same time, they are pushed back by fear of vulnerability, fear of rejection, or fear of being consumed by intimacy. The pull part of the dynamic is powerful. When an avoidant feels safe even for a moment, they allow their natural feelings to rise to the surface. They'll show up in small ways, leaning in during conversations, offering thoughtful responses, or even giving you a rare window into their private world. You may notice that they linger in your company longer than necessary, or that they subtly go out of their way to cross paths with you. These are the moments when their guard drops and their attraction leaks through, even if they don't put it into words. The pole is their authentic self, the part of them that longs for closeness, the part that is secretly obsessed with you but struggles to express it directly. But just as quickly as they draw near, the push appears. They withdraw, avoid calls or messages, or suddenly act as if the intimacy you shared never happened. To someone on the receiving end, this behavior can feel cold or even cruel, but for the avoidant, it is a defense mechanism. Intimacy triggers old fears and insecurities, fears that closeness will expose their vulnerabilities, that they'll lose control, or that once someone sees who they truly are, rejection will inevitably follow. So they push away, creating emotional or physical distance, not because they don't care, but because caring has become overwhelming. The retreat is often about protecting themselves, not punishing you. The cycle of push and pull repeats because both forces inside them are strong and conflicting. The attraction keeps drawing them in while fear pushes them out. This creates a rhythm of closeness followed by withdrawal, of warmth followed by cool detachment. For the person on the receiving end, it can be maddening, leaving you wondering if the relationship is real or imagined. But the very existence of this cycle is in itself a hidden sign. If they didn't care at all, there would be no pull, only indifference. The tension between approach and avoidance is evidence of their emotional investment, even if it's expressed in a fragmented, confusing way. Understanding this behavior doesn't mean you have to accept it indefinitely. It means recognizing that when someone pulls away, it may not be rejection but fear. The key is deciding what role you want to play in that cycle. Some people choose patience, creating a safe environment where the avoidant can slowly learn to stay present without retreating. Others recognize that the cycle is too draining and step away, valuing their own peace over the constant uncertainty. Both choices are valid. The important part is knowing that the push-pull is not a reflection of your worth, but of their internal struggle. At its core, push-pull behavior is the avoidant's way of wrestling with closeness. They are drawn in by genuine interest, but retreat when the intensity of that interest feels dangerous to their emotional armor. If you can learn to see these shifts not as rejection, but as signs of inner conflict, you'll better understand the hidden obsession behind their behavior. And with that understanding, you'll be able to choose wisely whether to extend patience and see if closeness can grow, or to protect your own heart by stepping back from the storm.